I can be all the time, yeah. Covering the mic tonight. I've been here. Oh, so maybe. Let's figure the mic. I don't need to come in and solve the problem. Once this way, but that's the problem. And then. Oh, stay, man.
Last thing the other day.
Feeling better, fellas?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm ready to jump over the moon.
Why, right?
Oh, catch up with me, but,
Hey, Mark.
oh, there's Mark.
That's Mark when we have him here.
Hey, Greg.
You on mute?
I'm off now. Good evening.
I can move over there. I'm good, don't worry about it, I'm just kind of. I'll hide behind Mike.
Okay.
Hey, Jim. Yeah, how are you? Good. Really, I'm trying to sneak in behind these big guys. You only have one?
Who's on?
1, 2, 3, 6. We need one more, right?
Yeah. Mark, oh no, yeah.
I don't count.
All right, so we're gonna just wait a couple minutes, try to get a quorum.
Anybody besides Mark?
No, so.
Bob said he's gonna attend.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually. If you don't think you don't.
There's one.
Just made it. Make our quorum. All right, well, why don't, it is 7, and we do have a quorum here, right? And tonight, our fearless leader is not here this evening, so I'm gonna cover for Mike. I'll be taking over the meeting. We'll call it to order at 7 o'clock. And call to order. First thing we'll do is, well, why don't we do the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. Yep. Pledge allegiance to the just called into order. All right, so, minutes of last meeting. We have,
Yeah, and there's a correction because I was not here. So we have to change that on here.
so can we approve it?
Yep.
Still?
With that, just with the change, yeah.
With this.
Yep.
But you send those meeting, minutes on?
Yeah, yeah, you're not kidding.
You resend her email, resend her your email, just to make sure it's.
Yeah, because,
You, John.
well,
Let's keep it going. Yeah, no. Make a motion that we accept the minutes, with the corrections with no.
yeah,
Minutes been accepted. Guest of audience.
Abstaining on that because I wasn't.
Oh, this is. Vote. All in favor?
2 abstentions.
Okay, 2 abstentions, any denials? Good, okay, yes, good, audience. Could we have your names and addresses, please?
My name, his name are Walter Albert. We're from Little Man. I grew up in Columbia, but we're here. He's doing civics project classes.
Excellent,
We need to see how the meeting's going, and how we involved.
awesome, that's great.
My mother's name is Nori now. So we're right here.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you quite your name.
Walter Albert.
Walter Albert, okay, Walter Albert, okay. And you're Willimantic, Walter?
Yeah.
Hi, Walter, Walter.
Yes, hello, welcome, girl. Welcome.
Okay,
And
Grew up swimming in Columbia Lake, so.
we're going.
glad you're here.
Terrific.
Okay,
Joel Morrow, sick, 9 Sleepy Hollow.
Okay,
and Joel,
Mike Armstrong, 95 Lake Road.
Chick Shipper, 3 Side Slopes Road.
all right. So item 3, communications. Is there anything, before we go on with the meeting, we can discuss any, or do you have any issues that you'd like to discuss for this evening?
Mike Armstrong, 95 Lake Road. Last month I brought up the siphon, I saw an email, I don't have the agenda for tonight. It's on there, not on there. Is it?
We will-
Mike is on,
Okay.
we do
Oh,
have a response, and we have a proposed motion when we get to new business.
Okay, I didn't know where it's. Okay, cool.
It's the third one on the new business. Okay. All right, anybody else have any with this?
Will there be any opportunity for audience participation later on in the meeting in your discussions on subjects, or would you prefer it was handled here under the audience of citizens? You know,
I'm kind of thinking you better, when we're talking about it.
if that's okay with you, I just hope. Meeting and all.
What I'll actually do when I get to that point, then I'll ask for comment, and then we'll talk, and it'll be perfect, you know.
Typically, the Board of Selectmen do the same thing. They ask if you're a subject matter expert, and we all are subject. Pitch in.
Okay. And anything else? All right, we'll move on to communications. Committee reports, start with committee reports. All right, permit review. Here, you want to take that?
No round tonight, so we have to take it. Permit review. Number one, the Board of Selectmen reviewed the Durway permit for the construction, out of construction season without a permit of a dock rack, for lack of a better word, and denied the approval. They have asked that the dock rack that is hanging over the lake for safety reasons, as well as with no permit, wait, and if we can do an appropriate site visit, help them better locate that for a less safety hazard, swimmer or boater in the area. So that was denied last night by the Board of Selectmen.
And just for the board's information, we have tried, we've contacted them, we've tried to set up meetings with them. They canceled, and then they actually said they didn't want to have a meeting with us, and then they came back and said, okay, we will, but it'll be in a couple of weeks. So it's been kind of back and forth,
Unfortunately.
and that's why I went to the meeting without any recommendation.
Any questions? Okay, moving forward, there are 2 additional applications or permits that are still in need of being under review. Both were submitted in March. There's an email to the subcommittee. These were submitted on March 1st. It was for a right-of-way at 17 Sleepy Hollow Road, Michael Dobush, and they're both still pending. Unfortunately, I think people are begging for forgiveness instead of asking for permission, because one of the permits has already had construction done on the lake bed. And I think we need to visit that as a subcommittee, and then next meeting discuss it as an LMAC committee, because there's an encroachment of materials on the lake bed. In addition, they're asking to replace a current plastic set of 2 stairs. And in research data, we have found that both plastic set of 2 stairs, which were placed in 2020 on the dock, were never permitted, and therefore no application. So again, we have to revisit. Unfortunately, 3 of the last 4 permits are, people are asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission, and, I think we need to address that in terms of how do we handle it. So, I'm not gonna get into details tonight, but I will meet with the subcommittee, before our July meeting. So in July, we're able to handle both of these issues.
And do one more.
Was it one more, Mary? Got Durway and Delbert?
No, 2 by Joe Bush,
Oh, two by Delbert.
and the other, was the, other application was removed, Lewis applications.
Yeah.
Okay, then, we'll move on to the dam. The dam.
+1,
That's the one.
we are now +1 above baseline. I didn't get to them, I just ran over before the meeting and took a look. Beth had in her gate report that the loopholes were open and 25%. But that was, her last report was about 5 days ago.
Yeah, I think she only went up until the 19th.
Yeah,
I hadn't been focusing on that, but you probably need to keep an eye on that with all of the water, in high watershed and so forth. We want to make sure that the dam is not there at the footing.
I can start having more view of it. I haven't been around to do it, so.
well,
Yeah.
all the snow melted in Vermont, now we got you.
Almost.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to the dam.
75 degrees, I got the water. That makes it.
Oh, good.
That's
You know, well, about 2 feet down, but it's next to Burnett's Pier, that sometimes it's going to be.
Yeah, radiates it out. Okay, any changes? There's no change on the emergency plan, right?
No.
Nope.
Good. Water quality? Any,
The first field visit was done on May 31st. We have no significant report. I do know, even without Seshi, that we clearly have a clarity of water. I'm seeing up to 5 or 6 feet, but I have no official report. We have asked, and TRC apologized. They got out late on their field visit, obviously, the last day of May for their May field visit. They intend to do this 2 weeks before, so we always have a monthly in front of us. So we should have the June monthly for next June.
Isn't it also right for dividing and spreading it out, but why were they late? They apologize because they're back now.
Well, there was some confusion in the signing of the contract for next year. And they did not want to start to conduct business until we could clear up the confusion.
Our problem.
I would say, yeah, we should take some accountability.
The noted before we leave that in rowing that there's a lot of pollen. If it is pollen as opposed to some kind of algal growth on the surface of the lake in the morning down about 6 to 12 inches and they're now getting to be pea size. And now we clear that we probably have a high pollen.
very, and it seemed to come late this year. It usually isn't so late.
It goes down, and it was probably the thickest I've ever seen it down deep. And I was putting in the boots, I had to stop, I couldn't see him anymore. So it's on the surface, you disturb it and it starts to sink. And then I couldn't see anymore, but it seems to go with the wind.
Yeah.
Because it's not on our end of the lake anymore, and last week it was all on our end. If I was over at Walters, his was clear. So even in the water,
We had a lot.
even in the water, it seems to get pushed too.
It's on Joni every morning.
Yeah, right now it's pretty clear. I don't want to.
I just think it's come a lot later this year than it
Yeah.
has in previous years. The other thing I wanted to ask about other codes is, with all the rain we've had, and we know we've had a lot of them overflowing catch basins and such. I know the code that I'm in is, we have about 2 to 3 inches of muck.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna be all sand, completely sand. And now it's almost all muck. And even those, I know they're not invasive, but those weeds are growing much quicker now because now it's going to move in that muck.
The moment coming off from behind the walls, get that big torrent that we had that came over Lefferts property.
Okay, right,
A lot of,
that's exactly, that's like,
a lot of
it's,
dirt and then.
it's all out. It all begins about the end of the docks, the rest is still sandy, but it's all about the end of the docks, just as big as can be, and I don't know how the other. Oh, I can't remember.
We're pretty good over where I am, but I got a lot of leaves on the bottom. The leaves just sit there. Where the dogs go, it clears out, you can see the sand bottom, then the leaves are ripped away. And they just sit there all summer. You know, I had someone remove all the weeds in lake bed, they're short too. But because where we are, the leaves, you get it too.
You get a big guy, he's one guy too, and pull out leaves. Fall.
Love pellets.
Yeah. They were, before we leave this pollen issue.
Have they been working?
Yeah. I just 6 inches, you'd like to ask you when you're talking with TRC to confirm that's what they saw. In May 31st, there would have been, whatever we have now was there at that time. And I just want to be sure it's pollen as opposed to something that's growing.
I did ask him and I did not hear back from him. 2 days ago, I sent him an email saying, is there anything of significance? And that I've been observing a ton of pollen and unfortunately some swirls of blue-gray something. I don't want to jump ahead and say it's cyanobacteria, there's some swirls of blue-gray. If you go out kayaking, I think it was Ann Dunn, who mentioned the same thing.
That would be pretty early to see that, right?
Yeah,
Yes and no, we're getting a lot of stormwater again, a lot of phosphorus.
Okay, anything else on waterfowl? All right, let's move to the fishing.
yeah, well, I can tell you that there was a 17-inch pickerel taken off my dock the other day. And then another 12-inch pickerel. And a 13-inch perch.
Yeah, and I saw one at the boat, too, yeah, I'm thinking that thing had to be, 14 inches.
Yeah, it was good, apparently good fishing,
But I
but
thought the
it's
fisherman did tell me it wasn't as good, which
correct,
is strange, so.
but it's a lot of weeds.
Well, it'll be part of that when we get down to the discussion of electrofishing.
Mm,
Okay, all right, access, safety and regulations.
Are there new regulations in place yet, or that would happen?
Well, when you say the new regulations, you want to start on boat launch?
The ordinance,
Oh,
No. Unfortunately, kind of a good news, bad news scenario. The good news is, I think that Henry, myself, and Mark, in our conferences and our discussions with the folks at Deep, particularly the organizer, Tim Delgado, who is the first and initial reviewer. We had an off the record conversation. And they came back to us, and then we had an on the record conversation, and that included Henry and Mark. That there needs to be in the 3 town ordinance proposals. Clarification and review in certain areas. They were uncertain as to why we were asking for things. There were things that perhaps they want either clarity and definition to match Deep, which we thought we did, and apparently have not. And I've not taken a deep dive into this. I haven't reviewed it yet. And where they want simple language. So what we have chosen to do, and Steve Everett mentioned this last night at the BOS meeting, is let's put this on pause. Let's not worry about getting something done in 60 days. Let's get it done right. And in getting it done right, Tim Delgado from Deep has proposed a conference via Zoom with the subcommittee. And we've got to get our act together. He's going to give us some notes and questions so that we are able to respond appropriately and make the appropriate revisions. So it's not going to be done by the end of June or into June.
so basically their unofficial review is worthless.
Well, yes, we spent a lot of time when we
Yeah,
addressed everything, and I thought we were
underhandedly, hit. I'm sorry, Mary, rework, because the things that came up should have come up before. Made it.
Well, I think simple language and wordsmithing, was the vast majority of them. There are a
They
couple
could have,
other,
they could have told us that 2 months ago, 3 months ago. During the preliminary review, they could have told us that.
they did, and apparently we didn't do a good enough job. So I take accountability for that. I was part of the, writing of it, and, yeah, we gotta go back and make it simpler, make it simpler. They want it easy to understand, and make it easy to understand. I mean, it's.
Were the things that were the things that they just connected to, or was just the writing?
I think,
No, there are other issues that,
I think it's unfair to really comment until we get back and talk to them. There were some things that they out of hand they didn't like, but they didn't give any reason for it. And it can easily be a misunderstanding. So until we have that conversation, we're trying to read something into what were, cryptic comments. They were, one-liners or half-liners, 2 words or something like that, so that we need to know the depth behind it.
So their review is cursory.
Well, I think it was very thorough, because the
They're
comments are,
giving 2 more comments, that's not very good direction.
well. True, but, we're working with, and we'll see, there'll be more to say, if there's something that's, problematic. We'll be here talking about it in July and deciding. what to do about it.
Wouldn't it have been beneficial if they had expanded a little bit on their comments so that we understood? what the hell it is?
but frankly, Henry nor I, because this just came up a week ago, I'm in the throes of moving a house.
Yeah.
And we have other agenda items that I had to prepare for. We have not taken the deep dive. And I told Tim Delgado that we're all on vacation. I mean, even Steve Everett was on vacation. We couldn't get hold of him to say, this is where we're at until yesterday. So let's just everybody take a step.
Yeah. Why don't we move on?
There's a reason for disappointment, because we've all worked so hard on it and so forth, but, we may be able to turn it around, and we also had hoped and thought that by having the informal conversation, we were gonna be there, and we're not.
Is there a timeline to that? Will we think you'll have some better information or better feedback?
I think the timeline's on us.
Yeah, and I think we're, we can hopefully have more in July, but we're going cautiously too, because, we wanna protect what we all know we wanna protect.
All right, then we'll talk more about it in July and see if there's any feedback. Okay,
That's reasonable. Thank you.
all right, water care, man, Mary, can you send me a copy of those comments? From David.
Once they're reviewed by Mark Walter and Steve Everett, yes. They haven't even had a chance to, I haven't had a chance to send. It, so.
Okay, watershed, water management, thank you. Is there any changes on that? Anything discussed tonight? I don't believe so.
Yeah.
So move the stormwater runoff, do we want to combine that later on down?
With the,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know what I mean, we'll talk more about that.
I mean, generally speaking, I learned yesterday, stormwater runoff in the town of Columbia is much beyond the neighborhoods of Columbia Lane.
Yeah.
Bob Miller and I are on the Stormwater Culvert Committee now for the town of Columbia. We conducted a survey of a dozen areas in Columbia, areas of Doubleday, Pine Street, Chesborough, Thompson Bridge, Edgerton, Lake Road, Pennequin Road. And there are serious and significant issues that are happening with the increased intensity of the types of rainstorms that we've gotten. We've probably gotten 6 rainstorms in the last 2 years that clearly have impacted the infrastructure of our town, and or we're finding out that our infrastructure is in desperate need in some areas. So once Bob and I get, yesterday was the tour, we're gonna meet with a hydrologist who's gonna make some recommendations and thoughts. And then, the lake, yes, will be involved, but at this moment in time, it's not just the lake. I thought I moved to my neighborhood, boy, now I'm learning more and more about the neighborhoods of the town of Columbia. Everybody has significant issues for these ones.
Mark, you had mentioned that, I think at the last meeting, we were talking that there's a number of really serious drainage issues and that's why you wanted to combine the lake issues with that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, budget review. Is there anything to discuss tonight? Is it good? Okay. Good. All right. So then let's move over to open business then. And there's a number of things we'll be talking about in open business. And if the audience would like to comment on it, we're gonna talk about peace monitoring, the update on the electrical fishing, the update on the gate repair, boat launch. And then a couple Woodland Terrace, a couple permit things and software that we're doing. But before we go into those details, is there anything that the audience of citizens want to discuss on those issues? No? Okay. All right, then let's go back to the committee, peace monitoring. Where we stand. Everybody.
They're prolific.
Yeah, I know. Jason.
The count is approximately, and this is approximate 20 adult geese and 17 to 18 goslings. There may be more, Beth Blunt told me yesterday, to go back out and start counting. So, this is what's been reported and or seen. To the bad or unfortunate side, we're getting, several reports of the typical, they're on someone's lawn and, they leave a mess. We're very aware of them. 40 and a 280 acre lake. Last year was 60.
That's less than.
Yeah, but why wasn't the number about 30 concerned with the reason for concern? Wasn't that when the DEP talked to us? Wasn't it?
I think it was 300.
It was actually, well, you're right, 280 or give or take 300, but then he said, he corrected himself and came back and said, it's at your point of when have you reached your limit? And he did mention 30, he mentioned 60, it's when do you reach your limit? You know, if you look in other areas, there are thousands in Bristol. I pass them every time I go pick up our boat. That they're trying to get rid of. Yeah. 50, I don't know.
Did we have any success? Some eggs were addled, but apparently the nest disappeared or.
No, 18 eggs were out. Nest is still there. Saw it this morning.
And the second are down from left.
The broods seem a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Well, 7. Yeah.
The smaller ones, hopefully we've had some foxes, snapping turtles or other things taken.
Which would be nice. We have reports of 2 dead, an adult and a gosling. There was some concern because there's a bird flu going on, but Deepa said, don't call them unless it's 5 or more have died. We've had 2 dead.
Just what floating, just not floating or.
Yes, they were found. One was on Woodland Terrace, the other was on near Camp Eston.
And then hopefully there's wild animals. I mean, there's one that's limping, that's been limping. for
Oh, yeah,
weeks.
he's on the beach.
Yeah, he's got a broken leg or something like that. So maybe there are animals that don't realizing this is a buffet of food.
The Eagles got it.
Oh, it's the Eagles?
Watch them die right now. And I change this subject, but stay on the same. I don't see any ducks this year.
Yeah.
I had 14 eggs under my wood pile. And one day the ducks were gone and the eggs were gone. And I don't know, I was waiting for them to hatch. I was keeping the dogs away. And we went away for a day and I came back and the shells were there. But I've never saw even a small brood of ducks this year. So what, is that the bird flu? I hope not. I don't know. That was what you just said it.
We have seen them on the lake. I'm an end of one, obviously. I hope others have seen them.
I see one hanging with the goose.
There is a nest on Sleepy Hollow. And there have been ducks ducks. Fortunately, our ducks are less in number in August and then less in number than the geese, but I think there are 3 pairs of that thing.
Well,
That's what I have. I expected to have them in my yard.
that would have been wonderful.
And it's all gone, you know, never, one day, even both of the eggs gone, so maybe a raccoon got them.
There will be,
It was no big mess, like it got filled up or anything.
there will be ripples going out on what works and what doesn't to deter geese. Um, some people are, you know, the DeRosers are saying they're sparkling rope of sparkling, flat, wind aided things are working. The flight control does work, but you have to put it on again after rain, and it's pricey. That spray is very pricey. Motion detectors work to an extent.
That's the spray that like Emma puts down, is that what do you call it?
Yeah, Emma put down, but because of the price of it, only did it once.
Yeah.
And then we tried something else for her, and it didn't work. Don't try anything that has cedar wood or, you know, some natural spray. That didn't work at all. She thinks it attracted more.
Yeah.
So, but we have, and there's a 2-acre home on Erdoney where the geese have been living, and this poor person, Emma Nyardi, is doing everything she can, and then it's not working, but except for life control.
Yes.
$300 a gallon.
I do notice that there are more artificial geese, or swans on the
Oh,
list.
yeah, I've seen some in coyotes.
Yeah,
If they don't move, they only work for a short period of time.
Yeah, gentleman on Woodland is using a coyote, 2 actually, came up with, and I forget the other guy, Woodland. And they've also said if they don't move them every day, the geese will.
Yeah.
So they try to move them.
but I have noticed that the swans are being moved around. And I see very few geese anywhere where those swans.
The place that you mentioned that has all the geese, last Thursday I was there, it has an owl on the shore side of the dock, and there are 2 ducks sitting on the end. And plenty of evidence of other birds between the owl and the dock.
Okay, let's move to electrofishing.
Henry, do you want or do you want?
You go ahead, you got the
Okay.
report, the report came in, and I'll just briefly say, and they made some recommendations. And Mario, sure, I think they're good recommendations for us.
Yeah. This is a snapshot, and the report, to give you a summary. There was an electrofishing survey done on November 2nd of 2023. Henry was a part of it with, I think, 4 or 5 other gentlemen from the Fishery Department of Deep. They did this in 2004, May of 2004. And when they compared and contrasted the results of what did we have in 04 versus what do we have now, or what do we have versus the average water body in the state of Connecticut, there were some interesting questions. Therefore, let me give you a couple of examples. Largemouth bass, which are plentiful and huge in most lakes, compared to 2004 and compared to other lakes in the state of Connecticut, are down or low in Columbia Lake. Small lakes down or low. Pickerel,
Which is strange.
which is strange.
We need to get this out, we'll have less people putting their boats in at the boat launch.
Yeah. Bluegills, fish, what do you call them, sunfish? Yeah. So, cut to the chase, those are the main fish, the bass, and perch are down. Cut to the chase, he's made 2 recommendations. He's calling it a snapshot because, we haven't done this in 20 years. And he feels, and Henry and I agree with him, that when they did it 20 years ago, it was in May in the springtime. When they did it in 2024, it was in the late fall, winter. So the recommendations, of which I'm going to propose 2 motions, are That based on the results, which are variable in a snapshot, and they feel they need more data. And this is, to me, fantastic. It took us 2 years to get on the schedule. The gentleman who schedules and is our contact person, Chris McDowell, the fisheries biologist. Based on that, I would like to offer a motion per Chris that he recommends a spring 2025 electoral fishing survey to more closely align to 2004 sample date of May, so May of 2025. And to include biological data gathering where they get, not only count the fish when they zap them and they come to the surface and then they wake up and go away after they count them, but to collect their scales for a biological data gathering and to retain up to 30 bass and 30 sunfish to do pathology testing. There was a mention, not a concern, but a mention of could this be some sort of a lake bass flu type of issue? Apparently, there's also bass flu, not just a baby flu. So,
But you get in fall, that's without people in the fall.
well, that was the thing, but he also said, because of where our lake is in terms of, we're getting warmer, we're getting more plants. He thought he would have seen more even in the fall, but he did also say they go deeper.
In the spring,
Whereas in the, they're gonna come. So I would like to, oh,
Well, we were only sampling like within 6 feet of shore.
Yeah, right, you
And
go
and
further.
the bass and the sunfish we were looking at were all under 4 inches. So it was hard to really say that we get any kind of concept of a cross section of the population.
Right.
Other than a numerical count. And the other thing that I would like to look into before they come back, I support the motion to get them back, but we should look at the area of the lake that they did 20 years ago too, because I was surprised when we went out this time, we didn't complete a whole circle of the lake.
Oh, you
They went out for X hours, and however far we got in X hours
these are 3 hours.
was what was the sampling. And so if we had gone in a different, we did a couple different areas, but if the sampling from 20 years ago had followed a different shoreline. And being in the spring, it could have been different, so I think we want to try to recover either by talking with people who might have been around at that time. Or looking back in the records, so that when they come out, we can get a better composite.
Sounds to me like. Actually, last November.
I don't know that it would
You can compare it. I don't think it could.
I don't think you go from, it's not the best to it's the worst.
Yeah.
There's something in between there.
Well, but also if you're gonna have another one done in the spring of 25,
Right,
then you can't compare that one to the one that was done last year. Because. One second.
If I might, I
Yeah.
participated in the 2004.
Sure.
With the Henry, you went to vote with them, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason for the May is that's spawning time for the fish. So all the sunfish, all the bass, everybody was within 15-20 feet of shore at night. They all come in at night in the springtime. In the fall, they are out in deeper water, so definitely 2 completely different surveys. We did survey at least 75% of the lake. When we did that, I think we were 6-7 hours, I forget what it was at that point. And at that point, the bass, the smallmouth bass were considered to be within the normal calculation they thought.
Correct.
What we had an abundance of was the white catfish. The big catfish that were not native in Columbia Lake.
none
And
of
the suckers, did they present them in the survey at all?
and the suckers are still high. Yeah,
The-
the bottom feeders.
Catfish.
And catfish, they were-
No, they're called white,
Most of the catfish.
when we did it 2004. We were getting 3 white catfish to anything else that came on the boat. And they weren't small fish, because we were a little farther out, 10-15 feet out. They were getting decent, not 3-4 inch.
Yeah, we didn't get any catfish per se, and they weren't the white. There, we got a couple, but I think the data we got in the fall was good because we hadn't done it in 20 years. We wanted them to do it earlier. We actually held draining the lake in the fall by 24 or 48 hours to get this in. I'm glad that they were agreeing that we should have done it in the spring, because that's what we were asking them to do it before, so rather than rather than throw out the fall data, we've got it for whatever it's worth, but now we're on the schedule to do it in the spring when we'd like to get it done.
That's why we need a motion. I'd like to propose a motion. Based on the 2024 electrofishing survey results, LMAC advised our town administrator to contact Chris McDowell, the fish biologist, to request as first recommended a spring 2025 electrofishing survey to more closely align with the 2004 sample data.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's.
And they're also gonna do, some plant sampling too, would you say that?
That's the next motion.
It's 20 years of recommended time.
Absolutely not.
You should have done it.
We've been a little remiss and.
So do we pay for it?
No. This is all paid for by
So how often should we?
every 5 years.
Can we pay?
No.
I mean, is there someone that does it other?
Well, I suppose I never looked in, I would have to ask TRC. TRC does plan the next recommendation, but I don't know if they do electrofishing survey. But every 5 years, if we get the data consistently.
Do we have side by side data right now? For the two surveys?
Because it's done here.
I mean, it's still at.
At least we have an idea of the amount of fish and how it can
Yeah,
go back. and-
feeling that
Yeah.
things are okay, we're a little high here, we're a little low there. However, it's why he's recommending.
Yeah, that's why we just.
The second recommendation that they made, and I think this is something, again, which is a great investment at no cost to us. Is that LMAC advised the town administrator to contact Greg Bugby. I don't know if you remember him, but he's a scientist at the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station. At the recommendation of the Fisheries Biology Department to request an aquatic vegetation survey to supplement the fish community data. So what his second recommendation, Chris McDowell from Fisheries, is Greg on the Phragmites, how many years ago, and I see him every year at the CFA, Connecticut Federation of World CFL meeting. Greg is a great resource, again, at the cost of the state to conduct an aquatic vegetation survey. I think it's a great second survey. We already have a survey from TRC, but it would be kind of cool to see what Greg and what they look at and what their results would be, and compare them to what we have from TRC. Which says our lake is, yes, getting more plants, but we're still within the okay or good area. That's the.
Yeah, that is nice. With the changes that.
So motion.
Receiving any.
Aquatic vegetation survey.
Okay, is there a second? And any discussion, any other discussion? Yes.
Back to the TRC thing. I watched those children try and launch their boat, did the survey. My opinion, any results we get from them are questionable.
What was the?
Took them 3 tries to get the aluminum rowboat off the trailer.
Oh, they couldn't even back it in.
No, they back it in, forgot the brain part, pull it out, back it in, get done, hook the back strap. Pull it out. Oh, now we forgot to load all our gear, let's pull it out again.
That's because they're going to state ramps.
Well, no, they're two people like 20 years old, a boy and a girl, so I can tell you there's other things going on in and it was just hysterical. So now I'm thinking, these are the guys that are testing our lake. And we trust their results.
They're both qualified scientists. They may not be best at launching a boat.
That's basic. Okay, any other discussion? Oh, that's it, then all in favor?
Very nice.
And anybody against? Oh, everybody against. Okay. All right,
Okay.
good, Mayor. Okay, the gate repair. Any update on the gate repair?
Yes, So we've been working with Steve McDonald, one of the principals of WMC Consulting Engineers. And they had put together the first bid spec that went out, and we only had one vendor bid. But that didn't include parts and any warranties, and we were hesitant to go with the one bid. So I've been working with Steve McDonald along with Elizabeth Lunt, our public works director. And what we've decided to try is we've uncovered there's only a few vendors that make gate parts. And we have one vendor that said they could make all the parts to replace the parts in our gate. And Steve McDonald said that they have divers and construction engineers that work with their company all the time, that they could warranty the outcome of the installation. And they could give us a proposal that would be all inclusive of all parts, warranty, and installation. So I asked them to get that to us. Then if it is reasonable and we're comfortable, then I'd go to the Board of Selectmen and ask for a variance in the bidding process, because we haven't been able to put together a bid package that can go on the market. So I'm hoping that with this new end run, because there aren't that many people in the field of replacing gates on dams.
We originally had like 2 or 3, and they asked us for the video, and we went ahead and did it. The other ones just weren't interested anymore.
We did the video, but only one vendor did it,
After that, after we
Right.
got the video.
right?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Is that one vendor part of this review? That you're going to go forward with, Mark? Or
Well,
looking-
I'm working with the engineers right now, so I want to get a proposal of using their installation divers and the manufacturer that is comfortable with our gate, guaranteeing what all the prices are for the components and give me a proposal. So I'm expecting that anytime now.
Okay, one more time. Mark, what's the status of the boathouse?
Where all the parts are in order, they're being manufactured right now. There's custom welding that has to go in with the support columns of aluminum and the laminated wood components are being manufactured. So it should be going into installation in 2 weeks. So it's under contract. The materials are all on order. And I just talked to the builder today. And he's gearing up for a 2-week installation start.
Okay. And how about the west side of the boat launch? Has that progressed?
No, I haven't gotten that far. We lost our Dan Johnson has made a career change and gone to work for a much larger school system in their facilities department. And he was going to be the builder of the decking over that boat launch. So we're back to prioritizing what to do. So I'm on the market looking for a facilities director right now.
Okay.
I'd like to come back to the gate repair. Because I'm concerned not only about, the quality of getting it done right, but the time of year it's done. Now, they said they could be in and out, but if something doesn't go right, doing it in the summertime, when we want to maintain a lake level and when we might need to let it out because of a hurricane or something like that.
Rainstorm.
Or it is not a time to find out we're having water leak out of the lake faster than we want to, or that we can't let it out. Because of the fact that some part didn't work right and got jammed or stuck or whatever, and we're in a problem. So we waited this long. I would like to ask the engineer, is this not at this point better if we get the proposal to move forward and do it in the fall when we and maybe we can still do it in September, because if the water goes down early, so what, it goes down early, but better better to have a problem in September than July.
What is
So,
this?
nothing will happen until I have a proposal and I talk to LMAC. So first, I want to get a proposal so we can evaluate, and then we'll ask all these questions on timing. What's the best for arranging, because September is going to be here in literally a blink.
Yeah.
It's coming fast. The summer is well underway. So those are all valid concerns, Henry, and there'll be ones that I'll expect Steve McDonald, our engineer we've hired, to talk to LMAC about.
That's good, because the last time they were just gonna move forward, because it could be done in a day, is we're gonna do it in the spring. But we also wanna be sure that we're not talking about doing it next March, so.
Right. I agree.
Okay. Is there anything else on open business that we needed or wanted to talk about? And we'll move on to new business. The pilot project. On pilot.
It'll become eventually part of the stormwater culvert experiment. Whatever it is we can do or want to do won't be until October to look at the drainage from that Franklin Road drain into the wind.
Okay. And how with gate key access? From Brad.
Gate key access.
Mark?
Mark, are we on hold?
We're on hold. We're just in the same program we've had before, and now I've lost my facility director that was looking into alternate options for card key systems, so we're backed up again.
Mark, to that, and probably should come up in communications, I apologize. On Memorial Day, we were apprised of a boat that illegally launched that is now 8-10 days later, and that boat has been seen on the lake. Marine Patrol told me that they can't do anything because they haven't seen them when they're out. Which may be why that person isn't out.
Well, I can address that, Mary. So I talked to Jake Plitt, our rec director. He's been in contact with the owner multiple times. The owner lives in Glastonbury. They're arranging to have Marine Patrol and the owner meet and re-inspect the boat. So that is,
Was it?
it was inspected, so Jake doesn't know how it passed if it is in fact not to standards on horsepower, but it's going to be re-inspected. So Marine Patrol is advised to make that happen. Jake is working with the owner to get him back in, and we'll see how it got through on horsepower and where we stand.
So he did get it inspected and we opened the gate. Because the gate's been closed
That's right.
and they've been much stricter this year with the gate.
He has a sticker.
Inspected. They had no
Say again?
record. They had no record of it being inspected
That was my question.
when the boat was already in the water.
Our understanding was it was not inspected.
We're not positive. We're asking the boat to come back. He has a sticker on the windshield. We're asking the boat to come back to be re-inspected.
Well, sticker shouldn't be on the windshield to begin with, it goes in the hall. So it might be.
I
last
agree.
step.
We don't
should-
know how the
he has
sticker
jet skis.
did not get applied to the hull and why it's on the windshield.
What
Did
happened
he-
to the other one?
Did he use
We-
his jet ski stickers?
We don't know the answer to any of these questions till we get the boat back in front of Marine Patrol for a re-inspection.
Okay.
I would like to also just point out, the Marine Patrol should not have to wait for a boat to come out.
And
of
they
the
will
water.
not be waiting. They will be literally on the person's dock requesting inspection. The second there's a life available to come down and inspect the boat, or they'll inspect the boat on the dock.
Okey dokey.
And my brother-in-law got his boat inspected this spring early. Didn't put it in, just went down to get the stickers. And they gave him the sticker and he said, do I need to put it on now? She said, no. And so he ended up putting it on his windshield because he didn't know it was supposed to be down there. So he was able to take it off and put it down by the registration.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's a change this year, Mark, we should make sure that the boat patrol either
I'll-
puts it on themselves or.
I'll
acknowledges it.
verify that boat patrol makes sure the stickers go on the boat. And not be handed off.
Earlier, and specifies where they go, because, you know, for years, we put it on the windshield.
Earlier in the inspection, they put them on the list.
You know what I mean? That's what we used to
Earlier,
do.
what they did,
And,
yeah,
the
so
rec,
you're gonna have to vote this year.
the rec director is doing a thorough and good job on it.
Yeah.
The other people that may be assisting him may not.
Yeah.
The rec director actually insisted when I was there that I put the stickers on while he walked.
I think all they have to do is be reminded to mention.
And I thanked him for doing it, and I told him, you know, I'm on,
think it was just early.
that's the way it should be. you know.
Early in the season, I think, you know, we'll.
Yeah, I think all it needs is to be reminded, because it is a change from years
Right.
previous.
But for the point that was just maybe discussed, maybe the stickers got put on the wrong thing, I think it's a good idea. They'll have the stickers applied to the boat that was inspected and to have the owner do it, or to have whoever did the inspections put them on.
They did it.
Brian put them on my.
Everybody did it, put it, well, I've been with a few people watching boats, and every time they put the sticker on, for watching people. It's
And the
Good.
stickers, and off they went, the stickers. were
Marine
down.
Patrol handed it.
They handed it to me, of course, they wanted me to put.
The assistant recreational director.
Okay, right, well, so that's gotta be tightened up.
Same thing.
All we gotta do is remind them, Mark, just have that reminded, you know.
Okay,
The individuals, I think I think it's happening. So.
I'm on it. We'll figure this out.
Great, Mark, thank you.
Well,
All right, so let's move on to, the bacteria assessment.
Okay, please, everyone recall last meeting, what was that, May? We did discuss these three areas. And you asked, as the liaison to TRC, that we get a proposal respective to each area. And TRC came back to the following proposals. Let's talk at each task. I sent this out, the other day. There are three tasks, but they're related.
Remind everybody of three tasks: bacteria, phosphorus, and the removing them.
I'd like to start with the bacteria assessment, which is task number one. Their proposal, as encouraged by Eastern Highlands, when Eastern Highlands saw that we had two stormwater drains with high E. coli. Again, a snapshot, we don't know. Eastern Highlands did recommend that we do continual ongoing testing. TRC did the original testing. Their proposal is to assess the risk of the discharge containing high levels of E. coli and coliforms from the two identified stormwater drains on Columbia Lake, as recommended by Eastern Highlands, to determine whether the storm drains found are contaminated. This would be monthly over the next 6 months, 5 months, I think it is. Testing for E. coli and coliforms in those two drains, so we get a consistent pattern and hopefully find out we're not contaminated and there's no threat to human health from those two drains. The cost of task number one is $8,500 based on their field visits, the lab assessed, all the travel, mileage, etc. So their additional field visits, for instance, is the major cost. I'd like to propose that LMAC advise the Board of Selectmen to accept task number one proposal.
So that's five visits.
Yeah,
So is that, can they test it for what type of E. coli? I don't even know if there's two types around.
After-
Animal or human? That's what I'm trying to say.
There can be a determination, once they get consistent readings, to say, is there something going on? Is this a septic issue? As an example, I'm not saying it is.
Yeah.
Personally,
Yeah, it's supposed to be something.
No.
Yeah, the raccoons up in the lake. Oh,
The last time.
It's five.
There was a hearsay report that there was a manure pile. Up the horses. Road in the vicinity of the drain. Does anybody,
No, and that's a different thing, Henry.
that's a different drain?
That's not the drain that showed high, people.
Okay,
The drain what you're discussing, it would have gone right into Upley Street, and that's,
okay.
but that's a different issue. We'll come back to that. But the proposal is that we accept TRC task number 1 to assess these risks. Now, this may require a variance or a change in our budget, but I think we're at a point where we have to make some investments for the safety and health of our.
Yeah, well, I agree. I do have a question for you.
And
On
beyond,
the next couple of things, there's gonna be, studies and assessments as well, correct? The phosphorus study?
yes,
The fire study and the pipe study.
So the question is, can we combine some of them so that when they come out, they're not gonna spend all day doing the bacteria assessment. Right? They're not gonna spend all day doing the phosphorus assessment.
I'm happy
Then
to
they
go
go
with this,
But yeah, is there any economy of scale?
I
We're
don't,
paying for travel, we're paying for boat to go in, the costs.
so how come CRC doesn't? Is it CRC?
No, TRC.
CRC, how come they don't? I mean, that's what we're paying for. That's the one.
This is what you're paying them. This is
They're
their-
the same people.
Yeah,
correct.
So, like, that was never included in our test.
I think there's,
Fluoride is not included in our testing and they do not test stormwater drains. They test the water at, Utley input and at the dam, and there's one more place. Might be over by the boat launch, I can't remember, but they're testing for water quality, oxygenation, septic, phosphorus, nitrogen. This is totally different. During a rainstorm, over a 5-month period of time, a better rain once a month, they come out and they collect it coming right out of the drains. That's what they had me do. They taught me how to do it, and in my big boots and everything, I went over during the rainstorm. And that was the second test we did that definitely showed the full line in those 2 things.
to Bob's question, because these are done at storm events, I think they will be done at the same time. And I think they probably have taken that into account
If we could double check,
in their, say, people, same acceptance.
We have one underwater. The other two.
what?
Some are underwater. When the lake's up, right? Some of those drains.
oh,
I mean, it-
The 2 that we're talking about typically will not be.
The one thing that we need to come back and talk about, and maybe we should do it before we take each one up, is that it's about $14,000 and
yeah,
total, and it's gonna be more than we have in our budgets, and we're only making a motion to recommend to the selectmen that they proceed to do this, because the selectmen then are going to have to find the money. From, general reserves or whatever, and take the appropriate action at the town level to go ahead and say yes to these, because they aren't in our budget allocation.
So if they don't have the money, is there something, one of these other tests? Is this priority over other tests with phosphorus and other tests that we could say don't do this, but do the E. coli?
I think
That's a committee, we would have to weigh the criteria as to why we would make a decision. Potential for a health issue versus the potential for the
This seems
fire.
more serious.
because phosphorus is tested out in the middle. Not in the storm. drains.
No. it was-
The inlet and uply stream, so we're asking them to go up. There are 2 drains.
Yeah.
Okay, the stormwater drain under Donny, which has the E. coli issue, also has the high phosphorus issue. And the Utley Pond right next to it, stream, we're asking them to go upstream and to assess and measure. And come up with recommendations as to how can we start trying to solve the input of the high amount of phosphorus into the lake. That's task number 2. It's not testing in the,
Well, what I meant is we're already testing phosphorus in the lake.
yes, that's.
So that seems almost like a lower priority than.
Well, it tells us what the phosphorus load is. We know we're approaching a max of the phosphorus load because of the algae we're starting to see in the plant growth, native plant growth. So we can do one of 3 things, figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Fix what's in the lake, which is significantly costly, and what should we take out of the lake, which is the pipe proposal, that's task number 3. We haven't gotten there yet. So I don't know if it's our issue, other than to say, these are all investments for the short and long-term health of our lake and the safety of the lake. Therefore, if we advise the Board of Selectmen, then and advocate for that and get around that, we would work with them to understand the budget. Now, last night I was at the BOS meeting. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there was some funding not spent last year that was mentioned that may go back into the coffers. And therefore, these expenses may be able to be swallowed up in the what wasn't spent last year.
And I can evaluate that. So what I would do is make your motion to your request. And I would then have time to evaluate all that and have the Board of Selectmen weigh in 2 weeks from now at their next Board of Selectmen meeting. And if we need to issue a PO with this year's funds that are available or using unassigned funds that we have from the budget, we'll have some options, but just go ahead and make your motion, what you think is needed, and then I'll work with the Board of Selectmen.
Let's back up a little bit, and if I ask the question, I don't think it's an answer.
I'm sorry,
Is it possible for task 1 and 2 to be done simultaneously?
I don't know.
Each one of them is one time a month for 5 months. They also say that they're gonna combine tasks 1 and 2 into a report. So.
But we've already costed this out.
It doesn't say that, it says the scope of work is task by task.
So
Yeah, so
let's have a motion
yeah,
with an amendment pending a review of the cost for economy of scale.
right.
But I think it's up to us. Either these are priorities for us to start to look at, short and long term of the lake, understand what the issues are and what solutions should be. So I would recommend we still have 3 proposals. And on the table is that LDAC advise the Board of Selectmen to accept TRC task.
Are we gonna make individual? Or we're
I'm
gonna
gonna do it individually.
you wanna do it individual?
I'm gonna make a suggestion, we can do them individually. But then I would like to suggest we tell the selectmen, if they're not gonna do them all, do 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Because maybe we can come up with a $2,500.
The Board of Selectmen should come back and tell us that first. I think we have to show.
Well, then, if that's the case, then I would serve it all up in one big package, because otherwise, if we send it up to 3 packages, it's smorgasbord, it's not like they could choose.
It's hard to have this done soon.
Are you suggesting an amendment to the proposal?
I would suggest an amendment to the motion, and then we may have one motion that says we recommended the selectmen that they pay $14,000 to do these 3 studies.
What do we have in our budget? Do we contribute ourselves?
Our budget is 25,000 and a fair amount of that 18 might be TRC already.
$20,000 bought.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all
This is the lab values too, will be at 20. So. that's including-
All right, so if we're gonna,
So motion to amend is to combine all 3.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
yeah.
Well, we gotta discuss it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
then one should.
first, any second,
Second.
you made it, okay, second, all right, any motion, any discussion?
Just one question on the equalizer, is there a recommended period of time when that has to happen, or is it any 5 periods?
It has to be right after a race.
During a raise bridge.
So they have to find time, which means they may not always be coming out at the same time to do what we stream.
That sounds like it's done at our small time too.
Well, we're gonna ask the question, let's not get back to that. We'll ask the question, I'm gonna try to condense and get some economy.
I only asked just to prioritize if we had limited amount of money.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like what the motion is to combine them all, and that way, if there's an issue, then we might have to come back and separate them, but let's try to get all of them together, it's a motion, let's move it. Okay, any other?
Want that to have the whole important one up. Like, put them all together, we might hold up all 3. By having it to come back to us, vote, if we have them in 3, then they might be able to do them individually.
You don't want them picking and choose. It's just a matter of how you feel.
I don't want to hold it up, is what I'm saying.
I get that, but they also might just say, well, we know we can cover these two, just approve these two and not everyone, and then we don't even have a choice.
I would suggest if someone.
If that's what they do.
The threat to a human health, that they will say, let's do that one, and maybe let's figure out more on the other two.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Any other discussion?
Yeah, removing the phosphorus from the lake is the siphon project. And
Oh.
our audience of citizens
Yes.
wanted to speak to that, so we probably haven't talked to that yet.
Mike, let me explain what the proposal was, and then I would value your input. They came back and they said, okay, put a pipe. How big, how much, how many gallons, siphon out, there has to be some study to be done. So they're proposing to review the concept of placing a bottom water intake pipe in Columbia Lake to siphon out phosphorus laden water from the deeper water into the lake. They will provide an evaluation of the benefits, the associated costs for construction and operations, along with their recommendations. The cost of that consultation and research is $2,500.
Okay, the cost of, minus labor, because I came up with a little problem with that, is $2,882.79.
To do what?
For the material.
Materials.
You should mention they, who is that?
Oh, TRC is our lake consultant. I'm sorry.
Now, I don't want to put a wrench in the thing, but we asked one time for the state, and the state, we found out if we did a pipe, we may have to get in with wetlands and everybody else involved.
Need to discharge from the state.
Right?
That may or may not be part of it, and that's probably gonna be part of TRC's research.
Right, because that's
There-
how I wasn't stopped looking into it a couple of years ago.
The other thing is, and I don't wanna get too much into the weeds on this, they describe an acre foot. New term to me. 1 foot of water, depth, 1 foot of water over an acre. Is 326,000 gallons of water. We have a 280 acre lake, that's 91 million gallons, so there has to be some data and research to say, are we gonna be removing? A right amount, is this worth doing? And or it's the dimension of the pipe should be this big, this big. So there is a lot of.
Yeah.
Input that has to go in to say.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do this, the right size is this, the cost of materials, et cetera,
We don't want to spit.
This was for a 6-inch pipe.
okay,
Flow is, because it's under natural pressure, it's not pressurized, so it's hard to calculate what we're gonna get, like 400 gallons an hour,
I don't know,
maybe.
right,
So like I've gone online and researched flow for pipes, and it's like you can't get a pinpoint amount because you got altitude, barometric pressure, blah, 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 blah. It just goes on and on, all these things you gotta throw at it, but 400 or 500 gallons an hour is about right, is average, what I found.
thank you.
For 6-inch.
6-inch pipe, yeah,
Is that good, bad, or indifferent, I don't know,
excuse me?
or is it good, bad, or indifferent that we're gonna take out that much of a 91 million gallon lake?
Exactly.
That's-
Is it really, is it even, how much is flowing over there right now with
Yeah.
1 inch of water, 20 feet wide?
But it's not full from the bottom.
No, it's not.
That's-
Yeah, so this is coming off, this will be coming off the bottom, getting
Right.
that
This is
sludge
the bottom.
that everybody's talking about that's accumulating on the bottom of the lake, all the, everything that goes down, you know what?
And why couldn't we put a pump instead?
Well, you could, but you're
And
not
increase the
talking
volume.
budget.
No, I know, I get that, but I mean, if the passive way didn't work, then why couldn't it? But that would probably be part of the investigation, I would assume, because if they come up with the fact that a 6-inch pipe isn't gonna do it, and even a 10-inch pipe isn't gonna do it, unless you use some type of pumping instead of a cycle.
Well, it will work, it's just how much,
Well,
then, you know, and then once you get up, as you go up in diameter of pipe, the cost just
Sure.
goes
Well,
right
this is why
along.
we need a consultant.
Right. So it may be infeasible. We may go back to the drawing board and say, what we gotta do is extend the pipe from the existing outlet to a deeper spot. Because the other thing is, when are we gonna remove all of this? You know, if we're taking it out during the summertime, we don't wanna be down to 8 inches.
I know.
So, you know, that's why $2,500 sounds pretty cheap to get some of these questions answered.
So the motion is to combine and to LMAC advise the Board of Selectmen to accept TRC task 1, 2, and 3 proposals. Total cost, individual cost would be included, total cost of $14,700 pending a discussion with TRC on the economy of scales. Any way we can come up, something to that effect.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor? Again?
I gotta rewrite this.
I know, you know, I got parts of it, I know.
I think it's 1,368,000,000 gallons.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
1 billion.
I
Is that a
did the
billion?
math, it's insane.
It's a billion, yeah. That's if the lake is 15 feet deep.
Oh,
We're about 1.5.
1 foot
Is
per acre, just one depth foot is
325,851.
325,000.
We,
Times 280, times 15 feet deep is 1,300,000,000.
okay, but we know we remove a hell of a lot of gallons and laundry improvements. And so there's October and November for the existing system.
So there's more than 1 billion gallons
There a
there.
better way.
Yeah,
So 6-inch pipe,
Let's keep it there.
180
All right.
years.
Is there any other business we want to discuss?
Let's get it.
Is there anything from the audience? Citizen? Did we miss it?
We're gonna talk about the weeds,
The weeds,
We're gonna talk about the lake.
the early leaf pond weed, which is taking over the lake, that weed.
well, that is in the proposal to have, Greg Buckley from the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station, who we worked with before,
Yeah.
to conduct a natural vegetation survey or study to tell us how the lake is. According to TRC, 2 years now, they've done a plant vegetation mapping. And we are within, I don't wanna say good, bad, or indifferent, but we're within the norm of what would be expected for a lake. Our lake is definitely changing, what we had 30 years ago, we don't have
5 years ago.
5 years ago, we don't have today. And they're still saying we're within that norm. That data and those results.
You know, they're probably measuring it like at Stockbridge Pond in Massachusetts, which is 100% covered with curly leaf pond weed that's up there last year. It's not a big pond, but they have a have a little mowing machine. It just goes and mows and keep it 3 feet below the surface. The whole lake is just covered, and I talked with the people up there who were sponsoring the race, they said, yeah. People drag their feet, and the next thing you know, it's gone. Last summer. I went over here to try to get a map of the lake, which is a major production. I had to go downstairs, get 6 different maps to piece together a map of the lake. Then I'm going around, because I'm gonna map how the weeds are around the lake. Then we had the great goose migration in August. And they all left, and by then. The only place you could go more than 50 to 60 feet and not see the weed was in front of the dam. The rest of the lake is ringed with this stuff, some places 50 feet wide. So
We share it with you. We have that day.
I'm totally worried that we're losing the lake and it's gonna be gone.
And all during the last 4 months.
Yeah.
Are you sure it's that pond weed? I think it's pond weed that we have.
I take it out.
We have those narrow bands, but the pond weed really crowds up. What we're having.
What I saw on the deep website, it appears to match. Their pictures and drawings are ridiculous
It's a
in
native.
quality.
It's not.
It's on their list is invasive
It's a
plants.
non-invasive, but it's not.
It's a native plant that's
It's in
heavily
shade,
accessible well,
you know,
it's a nuisance.
It's a nuisance.
It's a
We,
nuisance.
we didn't have it here before about 8 to 10 years ago, it first started out by the island.
yeah, both islands. are right.
It has spread. It is unfortunately practically everywhere. I think there's gonna be a lot of self-help harvesting this summer. And the time to do it is July, because you don't wanna do it in August, because that's when it's flowering and seeded.
The time to do it is May,
Hey, all right.
excuse me, May. And it's not curly, it's clasping leaved pondweed. There's a difference between curly, which is invasive, and clasping, which is, could be a nuisance, but it's native. To date, every plant observed in Columbia Lake in their plant mapping 2 years in a row is native.
That doesn't, but we still are having, we're being invaded by a native plant that wasn't here before.
Yes.
But
Correct.
we,
Correct.
just the same way the snails came in, this morning.
Is there any way to get rid of it? Did
Well-
they give us any kind of, you know, option besides?
Yeah,
I got a list of them right here. According to the DEEP website, nutrient reduction, which I got a whole plan for that. Excessive water drawdown in the fall, hopefully that'll slow it up. They also recommend herbicide, sediment removal. Where the Erdonai Road, Utley Inlet. Any cove where there's a catch basin that comes in.
Yeah.
From the snowplow sand year after year after year is accumulating in the lake. We could just put a suck truck anywhere we want, just fill it up constantly. With sand that the town's dumped in the lake over the years. Biological control. Sterile carp. The more I read, I'm not so sure,
Thank you.
but,
Read Candlewood Lake,
yeah, no. Well, now there's no weeds, so now they gotta get rid of the carp.
right, now they're trying to kill carp.
Yeah, and then there's this Bannock barrier, which is basically you harvest the weed out of your little beach area, cover it with tarp. During the summer,
During the summer?
in the water,
yeah, that big blanket.
yeah,
It's basically the full bottom that you put on your swimming area.
The first experiment on that in Columbia Lake.
Can I get it out?
Say that again, Chip?
The first experiment of Bethany. They tried it on the LED in Columbia Lake 20 years ago.
Oh, we did.
Came in and put in covers, Portland and Crew did that, and it works, but it only works in the area that you do. So if you're gonna do your entire lake, that's one thing, you just keep the sun from getting to it. Mike, just comment quickly. I'm still on the board of directors of the Connecticut Federation of Lakes from its inception. I don't any longer, but all of the methods that you described,
I just got.
no, I'm just telling you. All of them have negative
Culture.
They have unintended consequences.
harvesting any of the herbicides, and I put boats in lakes all over New England. And I see Columbia Lake is still by far.
Yeah.
One of the best lakes that I go on to put boats on, okay, there are lots of lakes around us. They're infested with all kinds of problems, they try harvesting, they do the alum treatment, they do all that stuff. It becomes expensive, it becomes continuous, and it never stops the problem, so it's just a matter of. What's gonna happen after you do 20 years of alum treatments on your lake or putting carp in and like when we had, I think the vast issues that we had in the lake. Slowing down the numbers that you spoke were due to the white catfish overtaking everything. That's what we were told in 2004. When they did the survey, that those white catfish were good, nothing wrong with them, eatable and catchable, but they were by far infesting the lake. Taking away from the resources of the other fish that were in the lake. So there's not much you can do, and it's the reason we chose years ago to put a watershed plan in place. The people around the lake need to protect the resource, that's the best way. When I first started in lake management in 1992, the reason was, and many of you will remember, some of you will remember, 1991 or early 1992, Columbia Lake turned pea green. Pea green, unusable, unswimmable, okay? And lake management at that time was considering putting a huge aeration system in the middle of Columbia Lake. That was the recommendation of somebody at that particular time. It was the time that we got Portland involved and we talked about having a natural way of doing it, putting regulations and rules and things in place. Trying not to keep people from developing their properties, but make sure whatever development they did did not add more phosphorus to the lake when it was done. The phosphorus is obviously the biggest problem on everything. And it probably has to do those curly, whatever the word you use, not curly, weeds, we're probably growing less because of that. So the only point being is all those things, everybody's tried them everywhere, and I haven't seen them successful. When I was on the Connecticut Recreational Lakes, we donated money to all kinds of people who started business with harvesters, and they drove in the lake and cut the stuff up, and it all just made everything worse. We had to really solve the problem. If you let it get out of control, as I think it is right now, the weed situation in the lake, it'll be unstoppable. But again, I don't know the answer to that, really. I don't know if there is an answer completely to it. But anyways, I'll shut up. I have one thing to talk about after.
No, I think you make a very valid point, Chick, and I'd like a copy of what you're suggesting, because then.
I just got it off their website.
Okay, thank you. I've talked to Carl Nielsen, who's our TRC leader, lead consultant. Nuisance is defined as to how much you think you can take. They can say the lake we're in great shape, we have good plant management, and it's around this and blah, blah, blah.
Excuse me, just because we are one of the best lakes in the state of Connecticut right now, so they can make that statement clear, because other lakes are well beyond that.
Yes, but what he's saying is, we have to determine what's a nuisance, and then what do we want to do about it? And that's the thing, there are a lot of plants that are growing in depths of 5 to 12 feet. Are they gonna get to 15, 20, 23? Then we're in deep duty, yes. I think we should bring our consultant in, and we should have a discussion with him about. We're getting to a point where some of us, maybe most of us, think that we are at a nuisance level, what can we do? And then look at the options and figure it out. I had someone come to me last year, and Henry knows this, and they said, oh, I raked all the plants. He said, when did you do that? Well, when the light went down. He came back to me the next year and he said, oh my God, it's double. It's because he spread the seeds. That's all he did. He spread the seeds, and now the thickness and the amount is kept.
Spread them and planted.
A garden. What happened in Kinglewood is that a longer story.
Oh,
They work great.
Kids would put carpet in, and they ate so much of the plants that now it's impacting the whole ecosystem. So now they're going to try.
With too many.
Yeah.
Because
Well-
what I'm saying is you can't control.
They weren't quite sure on the
Well, they're
numbers.
syrup, right? So
Yeah.
they can't,
Well,
they can't breathe, so if you
You're
just put a few in.
but the whole
A little bit here,
ecosystem
a
now
little bit.
is a mess.
But-
Every time you do something, we have to balance that.
Oh, I just understand. Like say maybe some.
Even though they can't breathe, if they upset the ecosystem, it's decades or more to get it rebalanced. Because part of the upset can be a massive fish gun, and then everybody's complaining because there are all these dead fish. Floating on, because there aren't enough plant life restoring oxygen.
There's gotta be someone who can figure out how many carp does it take just to maintain the weeds that we have now?
Chip, didn't we have,
Basically, wipe them all out, maintain it.
didn't we have a car here at one time?
Somebody put Hawaii in at one point, there was two of them be 25, 30, 40 pounds, there were 4 or 5 of them.
It looked like a Nolan ball that was so fat.
They would have been two of them.
One had floppy.
They're all gone now, I haven't seen them in years.
At least 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One was orange and one was white. The white one died about 4 years ago, when it got floated.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And one more.
So on the passive, trying to save the lake. Cause I worked there for 30 years, it's poking hot. I watched that whole thing just go in the toilet. And in the magazine, the River East, which is a monthly publication, weekly publication. They follow, it's always on the front page. Well, finally, after 30 years, they go, yeah, I guess we should have just banned lawn fertilizers and we wouldn't have had this problem. Took them all those years to come back around to what most people say with common sense, yeah, everybody's dumping fertilizer on their lawn, just goes in the lake, promotes weed growth, fungus, all this crap. So maybe we should think about 5-year moratorium on chemicals on your lawn.
We do have a voluntary ban.
Yeah, well, obviously.
We put that in years.
Yeah,
And I mean, you know, the problem is, you know, it's hard to. I don't know.
here, I got a remedy for that. There's the deal, you make it real simple. You notify, first we gotta notify everybody around the lake, everybody in town, every month, because you know, nobody reads the emails. Nobody takes those little postcards, there's a collective meeting, they throw them, eventually the news will get out. Put out a public notice to all commercial contractors, $5,000 fine for any application of herbicide, insecticide, or fertilizer on any lakefront property.
It's not only lakefront, the whole watershed. You have to do the whole watershed.
It brings to the lake.
Yeah.
184 acre lake.
You have to do the whole water.
I've seen papers.
The water comes into our lake.
It has to be the watershed.
We have to-
We have
No problem. Expand it.
So what's the one that was eliminated? Nitrogen, right?
Phosphorus.
Yeah, but nitrogen
Nitrogen isn't a problem, it's natural in the environment. Phosphorus is the chemical that isn't natural to the water, that when you put it in.
so it wasn't like True Green and stuff, at least advised not to do that?
And most, it's so-
We did it.
we did it. 20% phosphorus. The manufacturers recognize that and realize the issue, so it's hard to even get more than 2 or 3 or 5% phosphorus in fertilizer. Some of the commercial guys are probably putting more on, no question about that, but, I'm not sure that's the end all, and I'm not sure that, Mike, believe me, what you're saying right now is everything I said 20 years ago. I've been,
Well-
you're exactly right, it all adds up.
I think what Mike is saying is, and I'm repeating myself, maybe you haven't heard this, check what you did and what watershed management did with the development of that plan was phenomenal. In the execution of that plan, we've hit the low hanging fruit. We have not gone after the higher hanging
You're
fruit.
correct, yes.
And what Mike is suggesting is we need to start to think fertilizer, frankly, we need to start to think septic. There's research coming out now, any septic system within 250 feet of land is gonna put phosphorus, the lake water body is gonna put phosphorus in the lake, lake. And we've gotta start to think about.
I
these.
agree with you, that's
Stormwater-
That's part of my argument about why we shouldn't raise the water level in the lake, because all the leach fields are saturated with water. And every time it rains, all that phosphorus is getting put right into the lake. That's part of the discussion I'd like to have after we finish this one, that was my discussion.
And I think don't we have to manage the pump outs of the septic systems more carefully rather than people waiting a couple of years?
We have no ordinance on that.
I know we don't have an ordinance on it, it's just a suggestion that people pump their.
Yes.
septics.
The town looked at that before and it's within the control of the East Highlands district, and there were things that the town could do or not do, and with politics involved, and it didn't happen. Doesn't mean that it can't be examined, and if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, you can buy lawn fertilizer, it's not gonna have any phosphorus in it unless you buy this lawn starter fertilizer. The lawn starter fertilizer is the only one that still has phosphorus.
That I believe the farmers can use phosphorus.
Well, yeah, every time they spread manure, they're spreading phosphorus.
But also they can buy commercial phosphorus.
Right.
That's allowed to be used on farm.
Right, and but I'm not sure how many farms we have left in the watershed.
We have them. We're 70 acres,
All right.
right up the hill.
All right, one last comment, I think we have, Trish, did you want?
So I just briefly, and I apologize, I really made assumption there might be some discussion about water level in the lake on here tonight, and that's what I just kind of wanted to address a little bit, if I could have. I've done it before for this committee, I've expressed my concerns about higher levels of water in the lake. In part of what you're discussing now, behind the seawalls are becoming saturated, places they weren't in the past. My house doesn't have a leach field near the water, but there are several that still do down in that area. We're concerned about phosphorus in these things, and then we're also talking about raising the level. Historically, the dam was kept at mean high water, to +2 inches at the most. That's historically over 50 years where it was kept. We're now talking about making a change and increasing that level up higher.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
the change was +6. It's right in the guidelines. We took +6 down to +4. We have not gone over +4 since March.
We never went above 2 inches above the spillway, but then we changed it to +6, and now
We checked it with +6 about 4 years ago. And it was a number, I'll take responsibility, I pulled it out of the air and thought that if we could do it. And I now agree it was too much.
Yeah.
Whether
what's-
it's 4,
what's-
whether it's 2, we're working on it. We've got some great data about on wells, but we do need to hear from a hydrologist. And part of the reason I think we're not voting on anything tonight is we're gonna try to get a hydrologist to give us education and insight to deal with some of the issues that Chick is reporting about, because it's not just
Like,
water, how high the water is going over the dam, or how high it is in our lawns or whatever. There's a lot going on with the hydrology in the area, and we need to see how it all fits together.
So I came here with 2 recommendations tonight, if you're gonna continue to talk about and keep the water levels at the level they are. I think at some point, the board of selectmen and lake management, and I don't know if you've already done it, I'm here to ask them. Is there a scientific report that talks the benefit of raising the lake level and the potential effect on existing leach fields around the properties? Have we done any kind of study, or there, has it, who's the company? Yeah, I mean, have they made a recommendation to this committee about whether it makes sense to raise the water?
the only data I'm aware of came from the state of New Hampshire, who now has legislation trying to legislate septic systems.
Because is prior to any of those changes being made, you've already made some.
I'm sorry,
I said prior to the changing above the old, which you've already done the 6, you're talking about 4, whatever it is. I think you should do, the town or somebody should do a survey of all the lakefront property owners, not just the lake association, but send somebody to all the property owners. Get opinions as to whether they think the lake level should be raised from its historical mean high water to +2 inches when everybody built their docks based on, when the seawalls were built on that. All of that stuff through the years. I think it would be important to get the opinions, lakefront property owners, and to get a scientific report for the benefits and potential detriments of pulling up the water level. Just my recommendations to the committee.
Most years, I don't think we are over the high water limit.
It is
That's
hot.
still
It is hot.
It's been the last 4 or 5 years, that needs to come up.
I agree.
Well, we didn't, still have a choice, it's how, you know, to keep it below, you have to keep it.
Did you have rain coming tonight, which could potentially put 4 more inches in the lake?
Yeah.
Am I correct on those?
no, half an inch would be 2 inches. 1 inch equals 4, half equals 2.
So what did I just say? I said we should. You
Yeah.
could potentially get more water in the lake. So +1 now would be +5. Did anybody open the dam and press, and which is what we used to do? We were getting a rainstorm, we make sure we were no more than 2 inches above, or being high water, but this huge rainstorm, 2 inches below, and then monitor it during the time.
Right.
To make sure we never got above that +2 inches unless it was up.
But
Real massive
specific to
hurricane.
tonight, we're at +1.
So, but there's a forecast tonight, for an inch and a half of rain tonight and tomorrow, which could potentially raise that +1 to +5 in 2 days. Correct?
It
Am
can.
I mean,
A half inch,
The intensity.
in the house of the forecast. So.
that's 6 inches, it's been half and a half.
This is half an inch. We monitor it every 12 hours. And we get 3 weather
You monitor
reports.
the dam, or you monitor the weather?
The weather reports.
So. what's
And
the
we were
current-
down this morning and this evening,
Yeah.
looking at,
And it's +1, which I did, I understand, yeah. Well, last year, there were many times when we got up to 6, 7, 8 inches.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
on the dam,
we're
because,
in deep doo if we do.
because that's what I said in the past, the gatekeepers.
Honestly,
And you have some here,
We've been doing.
we would be in the storms 6, 7 times during a 3-day storm, making adjustments on the dam. To hold the lake level, to keep people's docks from floating, to keep leach fields from getting inundated, to keep seawalls from being wrecked from water going through it. Until the town took control and took that away from lake management and put it in charge of the director of public works. With other people working under them, there was no longer I don't know if you still go out 2 or 3 times during a storm, do you?
No, I just,
And we
if
always
they ask me to go open it, I go,
right, that's what I'm saying.
so it's up to them. Tell me what to do.
Don't on the lake anymore,
Yeah.
Where prior it always was managed by somebody who lived.
If I may slightly change that,
Absolutely.
please.
Absolutely.
There's an LMAC subcommittee of Dave, myself, and Rebecca.
Yeah.
Every morning at 5:30 to 6:30 AM, they get the weather report. We check and double check that at 4 PM and if it comes back. There are 3 sources we use, including the FACTS weather report, which is used by all schools to cancel Florida. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, what happened last year? Is the not stated in the-
You're absolutely right. We implemented that after last year when we got to +9 and there was water all over everyone, including our own.
We
property.
got caught by.
I get that. I get that, but it happened more than once. There were 3 or 4 or 5 accidents.
We may need to expect that to happen, you know. I
But
can't
I
believe,
think we need
I
to,
can't believe it happened.
I just think we need to understand that LMAC, the subcommittee is working with Beth Lunt. Beth always texts us and says, this is it where we're at, and I'm gonna open it or I'm not gonna open it. Now,
Well,
we
I think-
expected half an inch of rain in the last May, rainstorm. We got 1.77 inches. And as soon as Beth, 6 AM, she opened that dam and it went to +4.5
Perfect.
at the worst. That's exactly where we
You
got.
got it. I'm just saying.
So please, it's been implemented.
That's all I work.
Keep doing what you're saying. That's all I can, it's happening too fast this last year.
One of the things we're trying to do is to, unless we know it's gonna be a massive rainstorm,
Exactly.
is to not, jump the gun, because rainstorms can miss us.
Mhm.
But as soon as we see it materializing, makes some sense of change, and also to try to take more into account what's already in the watershed in terms of how much can the ground absorb and, so forth and so on. But I think where we, may want to reconsider is I think we've been trying to balance it at 4 inches, as opposed to treating 4 inches as the top. You know, we don't want
The max is 4 inches.
Yeah, that's the math.
And
Right. Correct, which is good, but I think too much of the spring, we were trying to keep it right.
That's fine. What drives the 4 inches over the +2 to mean high water that was always historically
At
kept?
first, I was never aware of the initial data.
I was kind of told that it was good to get the water to, you know, the more going over the dam, the more it cleans the lake, you know.
Not really. I would like to.
It skims it off the top. I don't know, I'm just saying
The
that.
nutrients are in the bottom, that's why you're talking about pipe.
Well,
During the spring and during the fall. When the water is not thermally stratified, then the water is mixed and there's nutrients all through the water. Okay, during the summer months, you've been down diving, the stuff sits in the bottom 3 feet. The deepest part of the lake is where all your nutrients, you go down there, put your hand, it disappears. Right down into it. That's what you need to get out of the lake. You're talking about a siphon system. I don't know whether that works or not, and I'm not endorsing it or anything else, but taking water off the top of the lake. The negatives. of
There is
people
some
dying, saturating leach fields, damaging seawalls, I'm not sure we weren't taking the water off top. Look, the scientists can prove, they're scientists can prove it, I'll stand there and say, absolutely, that's what we should do.
Well, but it's the number of gallons moving out, you know. That's the way I thought. It's not, it's better to take it off the bottom, but. As much water, you know, if you're turning over, we have 1 billion gallons and we turn over 2 billions over the course of a whole year. You're getting fresher water in the lake.
Are you, or you getting?
No, You're not fully.
How many? You get something, you know, it's not stagnant, just be cautious about keeping that water level high, and again, I would do a survey of citizens around the lake. The Columbia Lake Association, but all the property owners, find out their opinion of whether, because I've had probably 8, maybe 8 people, not a lot, 8 people that I bumped into who have said to me, what the hell is going on, my dock is floating, my dock is broken, this, that, my seawall is underwater.
it's absolutely correct. Last fall, you're absolutely right. It all happened. Our Dr. H.
And there's also a factor here to keep in mind, at the time of year we're at. we probably don't need to be at 4 inches in April.
No.
We might wanna be at 4 inches as we approach the end of June, or 3 or 3.5, because we're getting ready for the summer months where there's an inch or two of evaporation every day off the surface of the lake, and we don't wanna be negative 8 inches in August. So there are times when you might wanna favor the fourth guide. There are other times when you can say, hey, we're saying being between 0 and 1, or 0 and 2, or 0 and 3. And certainly in the fall, there's no reason to take any risk at all about flooding things out, because within a matter of weeks, we're gonna be draining the lake anyway. You know, so again,
I would just wanna make sure that the pluses of being plus 4 inches keep the lake from getting a little low in August. Aren't outweighed by the negatives that are done to property damage and other things, and I don't know the answer. I think you need to get, you're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars here for all these studies. Let's get an answer to that, because I think that that's something that's affecting everybody on the lake.
I'm trying to understand, because we've been at +4 since we started this spring.
Yep,
We did preliminary that, and went around and surveyed twice every lake wall. And the depth of the water to the top of the wall, in the vast majority, there were 8 to 12 or more inches.
it's not the top of the wall. Lots of the walls are not concrete like mine, lots of the walls are stone walls.
That's correct.
The water level seeps right into the soils behind those walls. There are still plenty of cottages and places on the lake that have leach fields down in their front yard where they shouldn't be, okay? But and eventually they'll get moved out, maybe, but that water level, when the rain comes, it used to be rain would flush over the top, and wash all the phosphorus that fell from atmospheric deposition on our lawns into the lake. Now it's doing that as well as any phosphorus that might be coming from the leach fields, because it's saturated, all that, if the soils behind my seawall are, I've been here since 1991. I've never seen the lawn wet behind the seawall, like it's been for the last year or so. At these levels, and I'm not the only person, people have come to me, and people I put boats in, and they come say, hey, my dock got broke this year, my this, that, the water's washing everything out behind my seawall. And it's because we're holding a higher level of water in the lake, and that's fine if there's a true benefit, but if there isn't a scientific benefit for doing that.
we are gonna really look at that, because we want to get
Hydrologist.
the hydrologist report, and we'll talk to TRC as well. And you're absolutely right, Chip. We shouldn't be having the level set based on non-scientific, I mean, not that they're wrong, but based on folklore and other types of thinking of why it's a good idea to have it be higher. So let's get to the bottom of it and move it forward. I think we're safely into the point now, unless we have a hurricane, where we're not gonna be challenging very high water again.
The amount of questions, if you're gonna do a scientific study, you wanna hear the positives of keeping it high and the potential negatives, not just the positives.
Yes.
You need to weigh all of those things and then make a determination like you would in any common sense thing that you're doing. As opposed to hitting a number.
So one can determine what's the best level, because I don't know. We're there, almost there.
I want to simplify it, but we've gotten an awful lot of rain in the last 2 years.
No question about it.
There's plenty of years where we never even made a full lake.
No,
I just had a lot of them.
Thank you.
I think this was a good discussion.
Yeah.
And gives everybody a lot to think about and discuss. But at this point, if there's nothing else from the audience citizens and nothing else from the board, I'd like to hear a motion to adjourn. Second, any comments? And
Thank you for sharing that meeting.
Thank you, Jim.
Can I just comments? I don't think that would be what we have to say, but
Good night.
Well,
So I'm 18. And I'm going to go on this. 4 inches a day. So basically, so each every night. Take your boat down. It's going next to it. Stay on against the wall. There's a white.
Yes, I-
People walk.
yes,
Goes down.